Hi, everybody, and welcome back to VolleyTalk. Today is episode 10, and we are going to be talking about how to train and hit harder as a middle blocker. First, I'm just going to connect us really quick to some different platforms, so Instagram and our private Facebook group, and then we will get started today. All right, we're connected now. So we will go ahead and get started. Again, this is our weekly Volley Talk series where we talk about all different types of things regarding volleyball training, mechanics, competition, anything that you can really think of. So this week we are really honing in on something that we haven't really talked about much on here, which is how to train as a middle blocker and how to actually hit the ball harder without completely destroying your body in the process. I think this will be a really interesting subject to dive into today. So if you do have any questions or you are a middle, please put that in the chat below. But I want Billy to go ahead and introduce yourself for anybody that may not know.
Hey everybody, Billy Glisson, exercise physiologist, founder of PowerCore 360.
Awesome. Yeah. So for today's topic, Billy, will you give some background on what you've done in the past or who you've trained in the past for middle blockers specifically? And how
Well, sure. I mean, we've trained hitters, right? And as everything's evolved, we end up obviously we spend a lot of time on left sides. We'll dig into more about why we do that later. But certainly left sides, right side, middle, back row, servers, anybody that's trying to hit the ball hard or score and get time on the court and stay on the court. So,
yeah.
being exposed to pretty much every conceivable position on the court.
Yeah, absolutely. So we're going to get right into kind of the middle blocker specifically today, because we don't have that much time. We only have 45 minutes. So again, audience, if you do have any questions, make sure you ask so then we can address those right away. But to start, Billy, can you explain the difference between what middle blockers do for hitting versus outsides, or just the difference between the positions?
Yeah, and so let's make it really practical. Oftentimes we get parents that call in and like, look, my daughter's or son's a right side or a middle or whatever. Looks like a lot of your trainings for left sides. Well, we do spend a lot of time, and we try to take even if a right side, middle, back row player, server, and teach them to be an outside hitter. But to answer your question specifically, it's how much time. I mean, the approach. Let's look at an outside hitter they can take on a full approach. They've got a lot more time to create a lot more speed. They're going to jump higher. They're going to see maybe more of the court. Middle, and let me back up with the outside hitter hitting left side. They may have a lot more time in the air to get in the reverse power C, to kick their feet, turn their hips, use their whole entire body, kind of create that rotational whole body arm swing, right? And with a middle hitter, oftentimes they may not have that much time. They may not have a full approach, right? They may actually be just jumping up from the middle position, right? After they've just blocked, now they're going to hit a ball. Well, you don't have the approach. You don't have the luxury of maybe as much time in the air to coordinate, manipulate, however you want to say, your body movements. So you can still hit the ball hard. You still need to hit the ball hard. You're still trying to score, terminate points, but you're still trying to save your arm, shoulder, back in the process. So.
Yeah, super interesting. All different things that we're going to kind of get into further today. One thing that many people maybe don't know, and I'll kind of explain this one, but an outside, like Billy was talking about, does get different sets than a middle blocker would receive, right? Middle blockers, you have the opportunity to hit a slide, quick, three, you could hit drift routes, all these different options that are slightly different, where an outside is either receiving a quick outside ball, out of system ball, or maybe a quick in the middle type of ball if they run that every once in a while. But for the most part, outsides are going to have a lot more time, a lot higher sets, and a lot more opportunity to get into good mechanics and really see that position that we want to see that Billy was mentioning before, where a middle blocker, you're running a slide quick. So the sets you're running are quite a bit different than what you would see an outside hit. So that's a point that we want to make sure is clear, and why, a big point to why middle blockers potentially don't have as much time as outsides or pin hitters completely. So with that point, Billy, let's talk about how middle blockers can start implementing the correct mechanics into their training to hit the ball and not completely destroy their shoulder in the process. Would you like to start with video 1 for this, or should we dive into this before?
Yeah, let's look at the videos, and as you're setting that up, I'll give a little kind of background for what you guys are going to see. So there's an athlete that I'm training. You're going to see video of that just turned 15 literally 3 weeks ago, right? She's a really good athlete. She's growing. She worked with us about a year or so ago, and then recently she's grown. She's now 6'2", just turned 15, is a middle. And even though I'm still telling her I think she needs to train as an outside, we're right now in the middle of training her as a middle. So the videos you're going to see are some things, some excerpts, some footage in the last week or two of me working with her and the results you're going to see. So that'll kind of guide us here in terms of, I'll explain what we're seeing in those videos.
Yeah, so let's get into it. These are the videos we are going to watch. So we'll start with this video. I'll play it and then we'll kind of slow it down. Hold up.
There's going to be 3 swings on here, so you can just let that play.
Awesome.
And if you guys can make it out, you'll see there's an iPad over on the wall, so that every time she hits, you're going to see a display come up and her miles per hour. In the last swing here in just a second, what I'm telling her right now is something that's really key, which is the thing I saw in her previous swing, which was really good, is her ability to open the chest. That's going to be the number one thing. We still want the athlete as a right-handed hitter to open their chest and shoulders to the right sideline. So write that down. That's a key piece. As she takes this last swing, you're going to see 45 miles an hour, okay? 45 miles an hour for a kid that just turned 15. I don't care if you're hitting middle, back row, serving, you're bringing it, because we tell the athletes if they want to be a Division I prospect as a hitter, they got to be able to hit the ball 50 miles an hour in the air. Here's the cool thing. We're going to get into this, but she just hit the ball 45 miles an hour. That's her 4th session in 2 weeks, right? Just turned 15. When she started 2 weeks ago, her first balls in the air were 36 miles an hour. So, we're up 10 miles an hour plus or minus in about 2 weeks. And so we're going to dig into, like, how did we do that? How do our arm speed and really ball speed in this case go from 36 to 45 that quickly? So I already gave you a little clue. The most important thing everybody needs to stick in their memory banks and train their sons, their daughters, their athletes, whatever, is we will still want to hit the ball hard. And what you're going to notice here is you keep doing what you're doing, Darian. It looks good. You're going to notice her open up in the air, so her center of her chest and shoulders are turning over to the right sideline when she goes in the air. In volleyball terminology, she's opening, right? And then you're going to basically see her hips don't turn a lot. They do turn a little bit, but you're really going to see her chest and shoulders start to turn, and the turn of her shoulders whips her arm through, right? You'll also notice when she lands, her belly button's not facing the left antenna. Her chest is maybe facing the middle of the net. So if we were teaching her to be a left side, we'd want her to face all the way over to the left antenna, right? Well, once again, when we started training with her a few weeks ago, we just said, look, we're going to train you as a middle. We're going to start off and focus on the upper body, opening your chest and shoulders to the right sideline, and then closing it and creating more arm speed, more arm pop to hit the ball hard without straining your shoulder. So that's number one. And this is just, we'll dig into in those other videos some of the things we did to take her to 45 miles an hour. And once again, at 15, I told her 2 weeks ago, hey, the goal once again is get to 50 by the time you're 18. You got 3 or 4 years to get there. I told her last week when she got to 45, I'll bet she'll be to 50 in 6 months. That's a big statement, but this is a very dynamic kid that's growing and really hungry to get better. So
awesome. Let's look at the next video to kind of get further into this.
So you can let that play, and I'll talk as this goes. So, athletes learn based on feel, and this is one of the drills where I'm teaching her as a middle, sitting there where I'm not teaching her to turn her hips. Her hips are, in fact, not turning. That's what the ball does between the legs. It locks down her hips. But I'm turning her chest and shoulders and teaching her what it feels like to turn her hips and shoulders. Her core muscles, her back muscles, those muscles from her core are actually helping her turn her chest and shoulders, and it's creating arm whip. So I'm first moving her chest and shoulders, giving the feel for that, and then I want her to get the feel of that. And so that's what we're doing here. This is a preliminary drill we do after they're warmed up. And then at this point in time, I'm talking to her about this is hard. This is a key important point. We teach a rotational swing. The body's got to turn, and as a middle here, I'm once again turning her chest and shoulders, right sideline, left sideline, feel the arm, but I need her to understand that's what we're working on right there is the arm action needs to be straight. That arm needs to go straight ahead. The arm's not going across the body. It's not going down to the left hip until she's released the ball, or if she was actually hitting a ball, her hand's going to go through the ball towards the target area on the other side of the net. Then it goes down to the left side of the hip. But that's the first drill we do, is then just letting that feel that motion of what's it feel like to turn your chest and shoulders. Once again, for an outside, we'd be having her up on her feet. We want her to step. We want her to turn her hips. Here we're saying, we're compromising and saying, okay, you don't have as much time as in a middle to do all that, but we're still going to teach you how to turn your chest and shoulders, because that's going to immediately increase your arm speed. But the direction, the movement of the arm needs to be straight ahead from back to front, not swinging across or throwing across your body. The hand's going out towards the target first. Then when we let go of the ball or hit the ball, then it's coming down to the left hip.
Awesome. All right, let's go to the next one.
Relax. All right, cool. So now we're getting into, we've activated, or she's warmed up. She's been sitting in the chair. She's turning her chest and shoulders. She's got the feel of that. Now we're digging into more of the arm motion. As she opens her chest to the right sideline, now we really get into the mechanics of the arm and shoulder, right? And a really technical term here, but we call it external shoulder rotation. Sorry, that's just the anatomical term. If you were working with the shoulder, you go see a doc, a therapist, a nurse, a shoulder specialist. They understand what external rotation is. Initially, what I'm doing with her is, when I'm moving her hand up with the ball in her hand, is how to go through that external rotation movement. When we do that, she's going to engage more chest and shoulder muscles. She's going to throw the ball harder, and she's going to protect her shoulder, right? It's a little bit more complex, but it's the same thing anybody, a major league pitcher would throw a baseball, a football quarterback, all the arm motion is going to be the same. So now we're just trying to take this rotational movement of open the chest and shoulders to the right sideline, and then close, and then let your arm whip through, and the arm and the ball should be going straight ahead as her chest and shoulders are turning to the left. And of course, we're gunning all these things. We're looking at, I want her to start associating, once again, with the radar gun, what kind of speed is she creating with the ball, with the arm? And one of the things we're really teaching here is not only the proper mechanics, how to get up into external shoulder rotation, but to how to keep a loose, lively arm, right? So many young athletes, when they're trying to throw, they put the tension in their arm and shoulder. There's no arm speed there. We want the tension in their core, the big muscles, hips, butt, legs, chest, and shoulders, to create the tension to turn the body. The arm has to be super loose. And in this drill, it's the start of her feeling like, what's it feel like to go through the proper motion? But what's it also feel like for her arm to be relaxed and loose and fast? And then start to associate, the last thing on this is, what's the speed look like? So when, she's thrown some balls now 53 or 54 miles an hour, right? Not hitting them, but throwing them. And I want her, as we're warming up, to associate arm speed and a loose arm with what does that feel like with a certain velocity? Throwing the ball 30, throwing the ball 40, throwing the ball 50.
Mm-hmm. Great. Yeah. Then we have this drill that is next. Or sorry, number 4, right?
Yeah, cool. So there's a progression, there's a methodology in everything we do. And so we don't just out and go, a lot of coaches will go out and randomly do drills, and they're just random drills in whatever order. Well, we're very methodical about the order that we do drills in. We turn muscles on in specific orders: the muscles that turn the chest and shoulders, the muscles that bring the hand and arm up into external rotation, the muscles that create the throwing or hitting motion. So in this case, we're following a specific order that we went through: sitting in the chair, to throwing, throwing standing, and now that we've thrown, we want to have the same feeling to turn the chest and shoulders, open to the right sideline, take the arm action. Instead of now throwing a ball, we're taking that same looseness in the arm and shoulder, and we're now actually on the ground hitting the ball. But with, once again, making the athlete focus on do the same arm motion, do the same chest and shoulder muscle, and start to associate what a fast, loose arm feels like, powered by the turn of the chest and shoulders. And if you watch her here, it's pretty cool. If anybody, for those of you that are watching this, right now she's got a super lively arm. Her mechanics are really, really good with her arm. And you're going to see a pretty fast arm moving through there, following the turn of the chest and shoulders. The other thing that I should probably say here is that, you know, oftentimes when we're training athletes, oftentimes we don't have a radar gun out. With her, every hit, every throw, we gun it. And this comes down to when we were working with college and professional baseball pitchers, we gun every pitch when they throw. And so we're doing the same here with volleyball. Is I want her to understand, once again, and make the association between a loose, fast arm and what that means in terms of her arm speed or ball speed if she's hitting.
Great. Okay, let's look at her hitting in the air now, actually. So we have this.
Yeah, cool. So now basically what we're doing is we've activated those muscles, we followed our methodology, and now that we're doing it with a loose, fast arm on the ground, turning our chest and shoulders to the right and then the left, all right, let's go in the air with it, right? And so let's start hitting, and we're not worried about hitting a slide right now. We're just trying to go in the air and transfer all this training, this technique, these mechanics, if you would, into the air. And like right there, if you freeze it, go back a frame or two right there. This is really, really good, right? See if you can freeze that, Darian, right when her arm is right there. Cool. So there's a lot of good stuff that's going on in her swing right now. And so, you know, you guys, we've talked about the shoulder line. If you drew a line from her left shoulder to her right, you'll notice her left shoulder's tilted higher than her right. You'll see her arms are below her shoulder height. That's money. And so her, you know, her right arm is exactly where we want it to be. Elbows at 90 degrees at this face. The wrist, look at the fingers on the right wrist. Instead of hitting a floater, we want her to have a long, relaxed, loose hand and arm, her hitting arm, right? And hand. So the wrist needs to be relaxed. The fingers are relaxed. This position here where you can really see how her chest is opened up over to the iPad on the ground. She's learning how to hit quick. Go ahead and you play this through, but the mechanics really good from the upper body are really good here. You could also, I mean, you can hear from the audio, you probably won't get to hear it, I guess, unless Darian plays that again. You can hear the ball coming off the wall. She's pounding it, so she's getting auditory feedback. She's getting visual feedback from the radar gun, the display coming up over there. This is important because, once again, she just turned 15. So she's now learning not only how to move her body, but what's it feel like to hit the ball harder? What's it feel like to back off 5% or 10%? And once again, these are real time. If you can play that last little swing again, Darian, I mean, you can just look at the arm speed of her coming through here. I mean, her arm is whipping through. And once again, if you watch that one more time and try to freeze it right at the end, you're going to notice where's her belly button facing when she lands. It's over towards the fire extinguisher on the wall. That'd be where the right antenna is on the court, right? Of course, we teach our outsides, or, you know, to do what? We want their belly button landing facing the left antenna. So once again, we're making a compromise now early in this athlete's training as a middle, saying, yeah, your hips aren't necessarily going to turn that far, and we're not even worried about that right now, but we are getting your chest and shoulders to turn. The turn of the chest and shoulders is through your shoulder and chest muscles, whipping the arm through. And then understand this, the arm is not this passive thing that's getting drugged through the hitting zone. The body goes first. That's really important. But then the arm is active. And once again, by hitting balls and throwing balls, she's getting a feel for how to move her arm slower, or most importantly, how to move her arm faster and looser. But we've went into the air here, and this is just part of our progression.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Billy, I have a question. So you're talking about how hips here when she lands are facing the right antenna still,
Yeah,
and how the outsides that we teach to land facing left antenna.
you got it.
Middles ever get to a point where they will completely turn their hips?
Yes. And in fact, that's a good segue. I'm going to make a point, and that's a good segue for where we're going, because I spent 3 sessions with her working on turning her chest to the right sideline, bringing her arm through, relaxing her arm, doing the proper arm motion, and not worrying about what the lower body's doing. We're not even focused on them. The 4th session last Thursday night, it's like, okay, here's the deal. And before you play that, I'm gonna finish on this one point. Here's something that I see that happens to young athletes, right? Young girls especially. They might be in middle school and maybe they're 6 feet or something. They get slammed in the middle because the other kids on their teammate, there's nobody as tall, so they put the tall girls in the middle. But I've also seen the tall girls go in the middle who were 6 feet in middle school, and all of a sudden now, by the time they get in high school, they're not the tallest middle. But they've developed the footwork, they've developed the hitting mechanics, they've developed the skills of a hitter as a middle hitter, middle blocker, and now they're stuck, right? But yet now they may have to go try to play at a higher level in high school or club or college. They're going to have to move to the outside. So I'm going to make the point where, yeah, this is exactly the point with this hitter. The first time I ever worked with her a couple years ago, she came in, she wasn't 6'2". I don't remember what she was, but she was average for her age at the time. So we were training her, excuse me, to be an outside hitter. Now I'm saying to her still is, we're going to work on your middle skills. We're going to make you a better middle hitter with more arm speed and improve your mechanics as a middle. But I'm still saying to her, I'd like to still see you work on your mechanics as an outside and develop both skill sets. Ultimately, you could be, how versatile could you be as a hitter? Left side, right side, middle, jump serve, be more versatile. Don't get stuck, because sometimes that's the difference between maybe a coach's perspective. The coach on a club team or something like that puts you in the middle because that's where they need you for that year. As a parent or as an athlete or a parent of an athlete, I would say to a lot of kids, don't just stop on skill development. Develop your skills all around, and not only just offensively, defensively, pass, right? Got to be able to dig, because you want to be more versatile, you want more playing time, develop all your skills. With that being said, that's a segue into, this was the last Thursday night, and this was us saying, okay, we've spent 3 sessions, we've taken your arm speed, not only in the ground, but in the air, up from 36 to 45 miles an hour. I'm happy, right? I'm really happy as a kid that just turned 15 that you're hitting the ball that hard. But I want to now work on the turn of your hips. So we've got a hip harness on her. She's going to go through. You can play that, Darren. We're now basically going to take and resist her hips. And I'm having her actually now turn. So you'll see, just the same training we do for everybody. Take your step, get your belly button to the left antenna, turn the hips, brings the chest through. Look at the arm action, still the same arm. Play that a few times, Darren, if you would. And so you're going to notice these same mechanics. We're going to open the chest to the right sideline. Watch this again. Watch her chest open to the right sideline. She takes a step. The belly button goes to the left antenna. It creates what we call hip and shoulder separation. I'm going to have you play it a couple more times. Mm-hmm. And the arm action's just money. This is also reinforcing why you have to train. You don't have to, but we recommend that you train following a certain methodology. We do things in a specific order, so by the time we get up in the air, we haven't just thrown random things at her. We've tried to train specific motions. We've tried to activate certain muscles. So now that we've got the upper body working and the arm action working for 3 or 4 sessions, all right, we're happy with that. Now we're going to start going back to the hips, right? Because once again, as a middle, she may never really need to use her hips as much, even though I would tell you at a high level, she should be able to jump in the air on a set where she's got enough time, a little longer approach, she can turn her hips. But if she needs to go hit outside or hit a jump serve or something or hit back row, she's got it all put together mechanically. So We got a hip harness on. We're resisting the hips. We're going to hit 5, 6, 10 balls. We're going to take the bands off, and you won't see that here. And then we're going to take it off. That night, once again, we were starting to go with, let's activate your hips. Let's reinforce the rotation of the turn of the hips from right to left, even though she's a middle.
Yeah. And I kind of want to go back to the methodology, like making sure that you're training in a certain order, because what would happen if this was the first thing you guys did and you did nothing working on your arm movement or arm mechanics or opening and closing the shoulders, anything like that? If you only did this, but then we're wondering why it's not all coming together, that's part of why you have to train in a certain order, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, so it's actually, when you asked the question, a couple things popped in my head, but the first one is just mechanically. The mechanics we teach are world-class mechanics. They're not basic mechanics, right? We're trying to teach athletes a solid foundation when they start at 13 or 14. When I first worked with her a couple years ago, she was 13. She now just turned 15. I want her to develop at 13, 14, 15 years of age solid mechanics. So once again, solid mechanics are, I don't care what position you play, but where you're hitting, where you're serving, look how consistent she is on every swing, opening her chest to the right sideline. She takes a step, then her belly button turns. That creates hip and shoulder separation. She's performing right now world-class mechanics. You choose the sport at 15, this is really solid. And now the key is, can we take that into the air? Now, part two of my answer to your question, Darian, is, what would happen if, and I'm interpreting your question like just as a random coach, right? If I'm a coach and I just gave her a random bunch of drills to do and not in any specific order, a couple things happen. Number one, you can really frustrate the athlete, right? So if we went to, all right, hey, I want you to turn your hips first, and next I want you to take your arm and shoulder and external rotation, then I want you to do this with some other part of your body, it doesn't flow in the proper sequence that the body needs to move in the air. And that's how we do it. We just break down the mechanical sequence of what we want the body to do. We teach it that way, and it builds on top of the previous movements. You can really frustrate an athlete if you're not teaching them and letting them have some proficiency. I wouldn't say mastery, but have some proficiency. Learn how to do these movements and have some success with it before you add the next thing. Then the athlete's got a million things in their head, and they're going to get frustrated. As you know, Darian, we spend time on the one thing. We just want the athlete to focus on one thing, so we spend a fair amount of time in each lesson, in each clinic, whatever the case is, giving them some proficiency. It might be for a middle, working on sitting in that chair first, and what's it feel like to open your chest to the right sideline and then close it, and then let that whip your arm through straight ahead. We want her to feel that. And then I want her to feel that being relaxed, and I want her to feel some speed with that. When she's got that, then I'm going to probably stand her up and do something different. Stand her up and throw that way. Stand her up and hit that way. But I'm always building in a specific sequence. So one, she's having success fast, and I'm not frustrating the what out of her because I'm randomly seeing 15 things I want to change in her swing. I see things I want to change, but I'm very methodical in terms of the order that we address those in. So she's happy. We're taking a kid from 36 to 45 in the air, but there's very much a given methodology with it.
Right. Okay, let's move on to the next part of the training sequence then.
Okay. So this was later last Thursday night, and here's my nice assistant over there showing the velocity from the throws, because this kid's throwing the ball in the air that night over 50 miles an hour. We're not hitting the ball 50 yet, but we're throwing a ball. So we're developing arm speed. But if you watch her mechanics, we're now working on, let's be an outside hitter. So we went through a bunch of progressions that night, how to get in reverse power C, how to pull your feet up behind you, freeze it right there. See if you can hold it right there in the air. And what I want to show is that's the same things mechanically are working. And right there, almost there, freeze right there. Cool. Lots of great stuff going on. Belly button's facing just like we teach an outside, facing the right antenna. Chest is turned open to the right sideline. In any sport, that's called hip and shoulder separation. Man, that's how some authorities will tell you that 80% of arm speed for a professional baseball pitcher comes from that hip and shoulder separation, right? Well, go learn how to do that in the air. So that's what we're teaching her to do that night. In the fourth session, we're working on reverse power C. Pick up your feet behind you, kick your feet, turn your hips, get that chest open to the right sideline. And then as she kicks her feet, turns her hips, turns her chest, now the arm and ball are going to come whipping through, but we're taking this into the air. We're no longer on the ground just throwing into the wall. Now we're saying, all right, let's see what you're really made of here, 15-year-old. Can you do this in the air? How advanced are you? And if you show the first part of that video again, you're going to see Lauren, one of our other coaches here. She's holding the radar gun, and she was showing me like the velocity on the gun because we're working on these mechanics, and she's showing me like, this is what we're doing, right? This is really good. This is a 15-year-old who 2 years ago, you never know. You never know who's going to be really advanced. They might be tall. They might look like they're a great athlete. But this is a kid that's super hungry right now, doing the work, very focused, and really making some nice changes as a middle. But once again, look where she lands. Now, remember earlier, belly button was facing the right antenna towards the fire extinguisher on the wall. She's now landing facing the left antenna. So we're now working on left side skills. The nice thing would be is down the road a couple of years, she could play middle, left side, right side, back row, jump serve, put her anywhere on the court where you want her to be an attacker. She's going to have the mechanics. She's going to have the power. She's going to have the health to her shoulder, her back, and hopefully everything else, because the way we're training her is about mechanics and protecting your shoulder and back in the process.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super impressive to see. You can see it even just in these video sequences, this training session versus the last one, and how much more advanced her in the air stop position is. It's very awesome to see.
Yep.
Cool.
All right, this is a slow-mo video, and this is somewhere in the session the other night. And let's just bring out a couple things that are good, and then I'm going to show you a couple things that we're working on with her. If you freeze right there, right now, if you look at the U in the middle of, I think that says sun on her shirt, the middle of her chest is pointing to the right sideline, to my left, over towards the iPad was where it was on the wall. Her belly button's still facing somewhat to the right antenna. That gives a stretch through the abdominal muscles. Her right arm is relaxed. Look at her elbow at 90 degrees. Her right wrist and fingers are relaxed. Arms underneath the chest and shoulder under that shoulder line. So this is money. This is going to be a swing as you play this for her. She's not going to get her belly button to the left antenna, but you're going to see her chest turn from right sideline to maybe almost left antenna, or at least certainly the center of the net, right? And then that rotation, that power of her chest and shoulders is going to help with her arm and shoulder to whip through. Cool? Now, let's do a couple things. Stop at contact, Darian, if you would. Let's talk about something we've talked about in a couple of other sessions. We start talking about, because I think maybe even somebody asked before. So right there, you can't see the ball, but obviously the ball's being held by the hook. This is maybe playback coming into that, and I want you to watch her elbow go from what we call the neutral shoulder position. There's the high elbow. Now we start, this is what we teach in terms of the high elbow. The elbow is coming up high. It's not coming up early in the setup. It's coming up after the feet have kicked, the hips have turned, the chest have turned, and now here we go, elbow coming up, hand up to create arm speed, ball speed. So it is a high elbow. It's just not happening in the setup. And so go a little more, a couple more frames. The elbow's going to come up. We make contact out in front of the right shoulder. That's all really good. Cool. That's a really nice position. And just so everybody can kind of see, there is a high elbow that we teach. It's not a low elbow the whole time. The elbow does come up high to create arm speed, ball speed.
Mm-hmm. And the other thing you can even notice is the tilt that she has. I know you can't see her left side, but you can see that her right shoulder is definitely way higher than her left, creating that tilt when she's contacting the ball.
It is, and it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, short answer is you're right. If you could see from backside up the line, just see the backside of her body, you would see exactly that. And so that allows her to rotate faster around her spine, create arm speed, create rotational body turn, and then yet her right shoulder is still pretty much in line with the shoulder line. So it protects her shoulder so she can bang the ball, hit the ball hard as you're seeing, but protect her shoulder in the process.
Mm-hmm.
Now, let's talk about something that she's doing, and I'm going to introduce maybe one of the topics for one of our next subjects, but I want you to back it up a little bit, and then I want everyone to watch her left leg, her left thigh, or upper leg. So right here, we're in a position we weren't working yet this night on bringing her feet up behind her. Ideally, we want the knees, the right and left knees bent up behind her. But now what starts to happen for her, and this happens to so many young athletes, freeze it right there, okay? You will see a lot of young athletes as they're developing straighten their left leg. If they're a right-handed hitter, it doesn't matter where on the court they're hitting by position, they will straighten their leg. And in essence, she's turning her hips and turning her hand, her chest around a straight left leg. And I'm going to this for all the geeks that are out there that want to learn more about this. There's an article you guys can Google tonight, and it's called "Throw Like a Brazilian." And you'll find it. I found it probably 10 or 15 years ago. And it's a study, and I'm not going to go into the detail of it, but it's a study of how soccer players from Brazil, they were trying to hit, but they would basically throw, and it shows you the developmentally of what the steps they go through. It's very much the same for volleyball hitters, male or females. You see this oftentimes with 13, 14, 15-year-old hitters, their leg goes straight, okay? And that's a natural part of their development. Ultimately, we want them to, bring their knees up, bend their knees, bring them up behind their body. We want their thighs to be vertical, and we do want their hips to turn out of the way. Here's the problem with a lot of hitters: if they're not taught to turn their hips, and then more importantly, they're not taught to get their left thigh, their left upper leg out of the way. Go a couple of frames forward, and what you're going to see is what we call right here, that left leg coming out stops the rotation of the hips and pelvis. That's the reason why her belly button's not turning from right to left. It's because her left thigh is giving her her ability to turn her hips and shoulders around that left thigh. We were working on that night the technique later of not only turning the hips, but if we don't get that left thigh to be vertical, instead of being out in front of the body at almost a 45-degree angle, it's going to block the hip rotation. Conceivably, you'll reduce arm speed, you'll reduce body torque, you'll reduce arm speed, you may reduce ball speed in the process because of the left leg, okay? Now, some of that happens for a lot of athletes accidentally, okay? I will also tell you that one of the worst things a volleyball athlete can do, trying to improve their vertical jump, and once again, this is probably a segue to get into in another subject another time, is so many athletes are doing box jumps, right? It's popular on YouTube, right? How do you improve your vert? You jump up on a box and you land with your thighs, both thighs out in front of you, right? Like in a blocking or in a just a position where you'd be almost like a squat, right at the bottom of the squat. And so one of the things that we've taught a lot of coaches and athletes over the years, like, look, this is one of the worst patterns to create and teach a young hitter to do, or a young blocker to do, because it's stopping the rotation. And now we're basically, I'm telling her the other night and her mom, all this stuff you've done with an outside person doing vertical jump training, jumping up on boxes, we're trying to unlearn that now. Now we're having to do 3 other drills to try to teach her how to pull her thighs back and keep her hips back. Because if you think about it, look at the right leg. If you just look at her body position right now, her body position almost looks like she's blocking a ball. Looks like a middle blocker trying to block. But with that thigh out in front, either you're going to kick the person underneath the net, or as a hitter, you're reducing your rotation, you're reducing your ability to turn and turn on a ball. Long story made short, we'll come back and do this as another subject down the road. This is not a good thing. So the short answer is stop jumping up on boxes. There's many great ways to improve your vertical jump. Please, volleyball players, blockers, hitters, outside hitters, when you're jumping up, you're creating a pattern you're just going to have to unlearn down the road.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, super interesting stuff. So that was all of our videos today, but we do have some questions that go along with kind of what you were just talking about, Billy. So I want to pull those up for us because they're an interesting part of what you're saying here with everything with the middle blocker. So the first one is and this is, I guess, kind of interesting because it has to do with, I guess, outsides too, you could say, but, or basically any hitter and how we teach them to swing. But it's talking about finishing the swing and where we're finishing swings. And I know you mentioned this earlier when talking about it, but the question was, I really need to know the argument for teaching cross body swings. Several comments are mentioned in it. Even with ball warm-ups, I teach follow through on the same side as their swing. The most basic of drills, I thought at least, teaches that mechanic. What am I missing here?
Yeah, it's about the anatomy of the body. So I'll try to do my best to succinctly articulate it in a simple way. It's not about creating velocity. The velocity, the torque of opening the chest and closing it creates rotational power. You've got muscles then across your pec major. If I'm a right-handed hitter, your anterior delta internal rotators as you start turning helps create more arm speed. And then at the end, your elbow, your tricep finishes it. It's not about creating the velocity, but you'll never watch a professional baseball pitcher, any college baseball pitcher, anybody that's ever pitched at any high level with any kind of velocity. This is an old school volleyball mentality. So let's dig into this to answer the question. If I rotate my body, and what you'll see, anybody that throws a ball, javelin, shot put, hits a tennis ball, anybody else, you're going to see the rotation of the body, and this arm is going to follow my right hand if my hitting arm or throwing hand. I'll move back here so I get a little bit more on the screen, give you a little better visual. As I go through here, the muscles on the front side of the body get stretched, and as I turn, it helps create arm speed coming through. Most injuries to the shoulders, if you look at baseball, the majority of them don't happen with the acceleration motion, the speeding up. It's the deceleration where the rotator cuff, the injuries happen to the arm in the slowing down or deceleration, right? If I bring my hand and arm on this side of the body, it's the old school mentality. I want you to watch a couple things. Notice how my right shoulder tips and anteriorly goes forward right there, okay? That's not a good position to put the shoulder in. On the back side of the arm and shoulder, and we need to provide a graphic of this, probably need to just do a whole episode on this. When I rotate, bring the arm forward, I got muscles on the back side of my shoulder, just like every other human does, right? They go diagonally from the arm into the shoulder blade. My lat muscles go down diagonally across my back to the middle of my back, and then muscles in my hips and my left hamstring, believe it or not, slow down the upper body, and through fascia, this connective tissue that goes from the tip of my fingers all the way down to my left foot, that fascia is like a rubber band that is stretching to slow the rotation of the body down, to slow the arm and the elbow down, and all those muscles and fascia are slowing the arm down safely. And then the right hand goes, when you say cross body, it is going across your body. It goes down to your left hip. And once again, watch anybody that throws with any ball or any sports implement, a baseball, a javelin, a football with any velocity, it's going across their body because that naturally allows the arm to slow down with the muscles, the line of pull, we call it, the muscles, and the fascia are all in line to help slow that arm, the shoulder blade, and the torso down safely and not create injuries, right? If I'm swinging on the right side of my body, and yes, when I got into volleyball 23 years ago, that's what everybody was teaching. I was like, it makes no scientific sense. It makes no sense with how the anatomy of the body works, right? There's nothing really over here to slow the arm down. There's not really any muscles here to slow the arm down. And now my shoulder is tilted forward, right? That's not where we want the shoulder and shoulder blade to be. We want it to be coming down over here. And now these muscles on the backside, from all the way from the back of my arm, across them into my shoulder blade, across my back, into my left hip and left hamstring, all those muscles are stretching and slowing the arm down safely. And it's one thing, if you hit one or two times like that, right? And I'm not saying you can't create velocity that way, you can. But if you look at the health of an athlete's shoulder long term, that's a lot of the reasons why when we go high elbow and come down here, we don't have very many muscles to create the acceleration, and more importantly, to slow the arm down in a good position. Here's that high elbow, internally rotated position of the shoulder. We don't want that, right? We want this position here where we can create all kinds of velocity, protect the shoulder. So it's really about, technically, lines of pull of the muscles, lines of pull of the fascia, slow the arm down, and be able to withstand the volume you might take from a 12 or 13-year-old all the way up through, club ball, high school ball, college ball, if you're lucky enough to play it, or beyond that. To handle that volume, you need to spread those forces out over the whole body instead of having isolated on small little muscles. Now I'm going to say one other thing, and I apologize for the long-winded answer. Let's say that you are training youth athletes, youth female volleyball players, right, who are 13, 14, 15. I mean, everybody that's out there, put your hand behind your shoulders. How much muscle mass do you have back there? Not very much, right? So there's not very much muscle mass back there. There's not a lot of strength back there. If I'm using just my arm and shoulder to slow this arm down when it's moving 30, 40, 50 miles an hour, the volume of that pays a toll very quickly on the shoulder. When we can spread the forces out, let the arm be slowed down by the elastic tissues of behind the body, the muscles back there behind the shoulder, arm, and body, you're going to tolerate, you can hit the ball hard and tolerate hitting the ball hard and have a healthy career for your shoulder, your back, and everything else in the process.
Yeah, something that's super important, definitely for coaches out there to hear and learn, because you do have some responsibility for what you are teaching your athletes out there. So making sure that you're not responsible, I guess, for destroying shoulders constantly with what you're teaching your athletes to do. So it's definitely something that we're trying to spread to everybody. So if you do have any more questions on that, keep asking and we'll keep explaining them for you. The second one is kind of similar to this, just a bit different. But it also I thought would relate really well to middles, because I know a lot of middles get stuck in doing a lot of crunching, right, to create that power. But the question, or I guess the statement they made on one of our videos about swinging and using your hips and your torso and everything like that, they said, no, no, no. You need to contract your abs to swing through the ball if you're going for max power. You have to be activating your abs like a crunch, or you won't hit the ball hard.
Yeah, well, yes and no. There's actually some good points in there, but let's talk about the progression. So once again, this may not be a 5-second answer. Um, when we teach our athletes, the first thing we teach them is to create rotational power. So when we're working with athletes and they go on the master class or clinic, right, we teach them to get tall and we want them to rotate around their spine. We want them to learn to rotate, because when they start, all they're doing is flexing and extending the arm. And then as they develop, part of the natural development process, they'll arch their back backwards. That stretches the abdominal muscle. And to be specific here, that stretches rectus abdominis. That's the washboard abs that you see, right? When people are developing washboard abs. That allows you to create a crunching motion. Yes, you will hit the ball harder. Yes, you will use their core. If you arch your back backwards, stretch your rectus abdominis, your abs in front, and then swing, yes, you're going to hit the ball harder. It's a great way to start for an athlete that's just doing this, but it's not the end. It's not the ideal mechanical progression. What we are teaching, and now let's understand, is there's more than just one muscle group to the abdominal. There's four, right? Rectus abdominis, right, is the one, the washboard abs looking very, that's that muscle group. We've got internal, external oblique. They cross on the right side and left side. We've got a muscle way in deep called transverse abdominis. All those muscles work in addition with muscles in your back that rotate, and it's important to use all of them. So when we start training our athletes, we want them to learn to be rotational first. We take the crunch out of it at first because they're so dependent on crunching. And anybody that comes through, and we start in the clinics, and you were just at one this weekend, and we asked the question, hey, how many of you got back pain? And 98% of the kids raised their hand. They have back pain because they're more than likely arching their back backwards, crunching forward using their abs. Once again, you can hit the hard that way, but that bending and extending is like, essentially, take the metal coat hanger analogy, right? You take a metal coat hanger and you start bending it at the same spot. First, it just gets warm, right? Okay, cool. Then you keep bending it, it starts getting weaker at that same point. Your spine is like that. You got many, many joints, right, in your spine. But if I always swing and I'm bending and arching and flexing at the same time over and over, first it just feels like a little back pain. But then I start after a tournament, after a practice, it's the same spot. That's the body trying to tell you you're overusing this little joint. You're bending and extending and flexing at that same spot over and over. All right, here we go. I'm going to try to finish this. When we teach rotation first, we align the spine long and loose. We teach them how to rotate around that spine first. And then the icing on the cake later, once they've learned how to create rotational power, get a lot of big muscles involved, right? That will take the stress off the shoulder and the arm. The last thing we'll do for athletes is then we'll put a little bit of a crunch back in there. We'll teach them, actually, here we go. We're going to side bend as they open up to get those shoulders tilted. So internal, external oblique on the right side are working, not rectus abdominis, right? And then as they go the other direction, rotate through. Yes, there is a side bend. Left side internal, external obliques are working, but it's more side bending, right? And there's a little bit of a crunch there, but it's the icing on the cake we add back in at the end for the best hitters, right? And yes, it will allow them to hit a little bit harder and direct the energy of the ball. But so many young athletes, when they come to us, it's the other way. They're either all arm, high elbow, or they're crunching, and now their shoulder and their back hurts. So we're trying to teach them to be rotational, and then at the appropriate time, let's add the icing on the cake back in. Let's use some of the other abdominal muscles to create more power. But it's not just rectus abdominis. That's one group, probably not the most important ones.
Yeah, that's some great information today. Hopefully, our listeners today, hopefully you guys enjoyed learning all about middle blocker training and how our methodology for training middle blockers specifically. We definitely will be sharing some exciting news if you are looking for training like Billy was doing in the videos pretty soon here in the next week. So make sure you look out on all of our social medias for that. And then we will be back to our regular schedule of Tuesday VolleyTalk live streams next week. This week was kind of just a one-off thing. So next week, back at 3 p.m. On Tuesday, and we will have another exciting topic for you. So thank you for listening today. Billy, thanks for all the great information. I thought that was really, really great today. Some great information for people out there looking how to train as a middle blocker.